It's Andrea from the Hickory Corner branch of the Mercer County Library System, and it is now officially September, which means that my brain has switched over to fall. I know we still have some summer, and I'm sorry to rush it for everybody, but fall is my favorite season, and for me, fall means apples. My daughter and I went apple picking. I'm going to show you a few photos from that fun little trip up here in the corner, and it just inspired me to make an apple crumble. And so I would like to share that recipe with you today, and I hope you enjoy it.
For this recipe, you will need to divide your ingredients into the topping and the filling. For the topping, you will need 1 cup of flour, a half a cup of light brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a pinch of salt, and a stick of butter. For the filling, you will need 6 cups of apples, 2 tablespoons light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons flour, 1 tablespoon of freshly squeezed lemon juice, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice.
Okay, so I'm going to start by greasing an 8x8 pan, and the way I like to do that is just to give it a spritz with a little cooking spray, and then take a paper towel and just go all around the sides like that, and then you can set that off to the side for later. Now we're going to move on to the topping. So in my bowl here, I have the 1 cup of flour, the half a cup of brown sugar. You'll see that it's still packed in the form of the measuring cup. So remember, with brown sugar, you always want to pack it down. With flour, you always want to spoon it in very lightly. You do not want to pack flour or you won't get the right amounts. So the 1 cup of flour, half a cup of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then I'm just gonna add a pinch of salt. You just need a little salt to balance the sweetness. And then what you're gonna do is you're going to add your butter. This butter is cold and it's been cubed, okay? And what you're gonna do is just put that in, and I'm just gonna put it in like that, and then this is where you're going to make the crumble part of the apple crumble. So if you have a pastry cutter, you can certainly use that. I don't have a pastry cutter, so you can also use 2 knives like this and cut everything together. And although that is a nice method, my favorite tool in the kitchen is my hands. So I'm actually just going to get my hands right in there and crumble everything together. Now this does take a little bit, so I'm just gonna spend a little time crumbling this all together, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm all done. All right, so my crumble is all crumbled together. You'll see that it's kind of the consistency of wet sand, and it looks like a bunch of like little pebbles in there. And the reason I'm calling this a crumble is because I'm not putting oats in this. If you want to add oats, you're going to be making more of an apple crisp, and that's fine. I'm leaving the oats out today. If you also just want to crunch on top, you can certainly add your favorite chopped nuts, whatever you like there. But I'm going to stick to a traditional crumble topping today. So I'm going to pop this into the fridge, and then I'm going to show you how to make the filling. So let's move on to the filling. For the filling, you're going to need about 6 cups of apples, which is about 6 or 7 apples, about this size, like a medium-sized apple. Like I said, these are the ones we picked from the apple orchard. I'm using Gala apples today. They are on the sweeter end of the apple spectrum. I'm going to show you something I printed out because depending on the apples you use, it will really change the sweetness of this recipe. So because the Gala apples are on the sweet end down here by the Fuji's being the sweetest, and Galas are right here. So I'm actually using only 2 tablespoons of brown sugar in the filling for that reason, because I think the apples add a lot of sweetness. You don't need a lot of extra sweetness. But if you're using an apple up here on the tartar end of the spectrum, you will want to use a little bit more sugar to balance that out. So I've got 7 chopped up apples, about this size is good, like cubed up like that. So I've got those all ready to go. I peeled them and chopped them off camera so you didn't have to see all that. So I'm gonna add a tablespoon of freshly squeezed lemon juice. That's about half of a small lemon. So I'm gonna put that in there. That just adds some brightness and freshness. It also helps the apples not to oxidize so much. So I'm just gonna toss them in that lemon juice. And then we are going to add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. I like to use brown sugar instead of white sugar. I just love the way that the brown sugar mixes with the apples and the way that that tastes together. Okay, so we got 2 tablespoons there. Now we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of flour because the flour will help thicken up the filling so it's not super liquidy when you go to scoop it later. So let's put in 2 tablespoons of flour. And now we're gonna move on to our spices. So let's get that out of the way. So we're gonna start with half a teaspoon of cinnamon. Okay, and now we're gonna move on to allspice and nutmeg. Now, if you don't have allspice and nutmeg, you can leave it out and just go straight cinnamon. Or if you want, the 3 of these combined are actually in something called apple pie spice, and you can find that right in the spice aisle. So if you'd rather use apple pie spice, just use a teaspoon of that. If you have these, it's half of this, a quarter of the allspice, and a quarter of the nutmeg. If you don't have that and just want to go straight cinnamon, that's fine too. So I'm just gonna add a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg and a quarter teaspoon of the allspice. And now we're just gonna toss that together. And once everything is coated, then it's ready to go into our prepared pan that I have still sitting off to the side over there. So you're just gonna wanna toss this until the flour soaks up some of that lemon juice. Also, when this cooks, the apples will release liquid too, so you really wanna make sure that you put that flour in there so you don't have a soupy mess. Okay, so I think a few more tosses. Make sure you scrape your sides, get all that goodness. I always like to do that folding method where I go up from the bottom, give them a nice toss there. And these are looking really good. So you wanna have them look something like that. Oh my goodness, this smells amazing. So I'm gonna grab my prepared pan and I'm just gonna put everything in there. All right, we have one that escaped and I'm just gonna go over to the fridge and get my crumble, and then we'll go ahead and put that on top. Okay, so we have the apples spread out evenly in the baking dish and we're ready to put the crumble on top. And really all you're gonna do is take it out of the bowl and spread a nice even layer on top. Make sure you get it in all the little corners. So this is ready to go. You're gonna wanna put it in a 375-degree oven for 30 to 35 minutes. You'll know it's done when the topping is all bubbly and the butter's all melted and mixing in with that brown sugar, and your apples are soft but not mushy. You want them to be almost like al dente pasta where they still have a little bit of their shape, and that way I just think they make a better mouthfeel for your dessert. So I'm gonna pop this into the oven and I'll meet you back here when it's all done. So my apple crumble is out of the oven. It's had a chance to cool, but it's still warm, which is my favorite way to serve it. And I scooped up a big helping, put it into a dish, topped it with some vanilla ice cream, and you've got a perfect fall dessert right here. I hope you guys enjoy it. Bye.